Hi everyone, welcome back to tutorial video number 2 of my Nostalgia Pop-Up Christmas album for Country Craft Creations. First we're going to start out by cutting cardstock in these sizes that I'm showing here on the screen. You can pause this and go ahead and cut what you need and go ahead and score, but I will also show you what I'm doing in the next segment. To create flip-up flaps for 2 of the page sets, I cut the 2 pieces that are 6 inches by 6.5. I've already cut these, and now I am scoring the 6.5 inch side at a 1/2 inch. Fold these and go ahead and burnish. These are going to attach to 2 of the base page sets that you already prepared in video 1. So pull out 2 of the sets. I'm just lining them up, stacking them up to make sure that they match. So I'm going to take I'm going to show you on 1 how to do it, but you only do this to 2. So make sure that you have an opening to the right. Line this up in your scoreboard. On your mat, make sure the flaps are burnished, then add your glue to the 1/2 inch hinge on the flap, and you will attach this to the top of your page. So you have an opening to the right and an opening to the left. Make sure you get that straight at the top. It really helps to use your scoreboard this way to line things up. Burnish, lift up, and burnish on the inside. And if you have any glue, excess glue, just wipe that off. So you do this for 2 of your base pages. I have already pre-cut my papers for my pages and flaps. I ended up cutting 24. You do need at least 20, so I cut 24 so I have some extras to decide on. I'm going to ink the edges of my papers using this Color Philosophy sepia color from Prima. And I've discovered that I like to ink with just using the ink pad. I don't like a lot of ink on the front side of the paper, so I just ink the edges where it's cut and it's showing white to take away that. So ink your pages if desired. If not, you can skip this step. So I'm going to be inking mine. I won't always show you that I'm inking it, but I do ink all of my papers. And we're going to start out by working on page set number 1. Now page set number 1 does have one of the flip up flaps, so you want to make sure that you pull one of those out that we're going to work on. So I've cut my papers and I've selected the papers that I want to use, and I'm going to put this flower one on the front. And if you cut it the 5 7/8 by 5 7/8, it's going to fit perfectly on that. So go ahead and mat down your papers with I use art glitter glue, and go ahead and put those down. And I'm just deciding if I have the right direction or not to see if it's directional. I don't think it is. So I'm going to put this one on the top, and then I'm going to lift up the flap and put the red ones down. We have patterned the front of page set 1 and the 2 insides of the flap, and now we're ready to do our first pop-up element component. So I have cut a piece of cardstock that measures 6 inches by 4.5, and you're going to score the 4.5 inch side at a 1/2 inch, 2 inch, 2.5 inches, and 4. This is going to make us a rectangle type pop-up element. Burnish all your folds really well because you want this to fold up and hold up really well. You want to be able to fold it really good, and then you're going to take your 2 1/2 inch sections and glue these together to create the rectangle. So I'm just checking to make sure they line up good, and I'm going to apply glue to just 1 1/2 inch section. And then I'm going to lay it down flat and fold the other half-inch section onto the one that has the glue and hold it down with my fingers, and then burnish with my fingers, and then with the bone folder to make sure that it has a good stick. You want it to stick really well. You don't want it coming apart. And then go ahead and reshape it into the rectangle shape and burnish really well again to make sure everything folds up, because this will fold flat when the book is closed and then will come back up when you lift up on the pop-up. So I'm going to add this Santa with the chimney, I couldn't think what to call it, chimney, and the reindeer on the roof. And you will see when you glue it on there, you have a little bit of it that's still showing on the side, so you'll need to cut that to make it look right. So I have decided to put it here between the flaps with the flip up flap at the top that you have. We've already patterned the inside here with the red snow looking patterned paper. And this is where it's going to fit with the Santa on the roof in the chimney. And so now I'm going to cut out more along the edge here. I've decided to go ahead and cut right up against the snow and as close as I can to the reindeer and their antlers. I'm not going to cut into every antler because that's very time consuming and it'd make it too fragile. So I'm going to cut around it as close as I can and keep the image. You may have already fussy cut yours earlier. I fussy cut mine out loosely, and now I'm doing my final detail here for what I want it to be in the pop-up. And then once I cut this out, I'm going to glue this down onto black cardstock. If you have a scrap that it will fit on, that will work fine. Or you may need to get a new piece of 12 by 12 to use for your matting of your cutouts that you're cutting out for your fussy cutting, because we're going to mat these onto black to make sure that it is very, very sturdy when it's in the book. We don't want it to be just the pattern paper because it would be too thin. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up, and I will stop it when I need to show you something or tell you something. Before we add this rectangle pop-up element into our page set 1, we need to cover the sections of it that we'll be showing. So take your ruler and measure the one wide section of the element. It should be about 5 7/8 inches long for what you pattern paper that you cut. And then for the wide part, cut it about, looks like 1 3/8, and glue that down on just one side. This will be the wide part that shows, and on the narrow part you want it about 3/8 inches wide by the 5 7/8. So this is to finish it off so that it's not just black from the back side. So go ahead and glue these down on one side, one wide side, and one narrow side to finish this element. And again, if you have scrap papers, you can use that to conserve from cutting into your main paper. At this point, I don't know if you have enough scraps to do that, but always check your scraps first to make sure that if you have something that works that you can use it. It doesn't have to match or anything, just be from the same collection. So I'm gluing this one down. You see I have a plaid strip here, and then I have the Christmas trees. So burnish that down and wipe off any excess glue. And so this is going to be glued down to the inside the book. I've decided to glue it down this way and then I'm going to attach the Santa to the front. So I'm using paper clips to hold it down before I actually glue it, to check how it folds up, to make sure that it's going to fold down flat, and then that I'm able to pull it back up as it goes up and down. So now I'm just checking my Santa, and the reason I turned this pop-up element this direction is so that I did not have to trim off more of the roof. So because of that half-inch piece there at the bottom, I'm able to keep more of the image. So you can see that it's going to work there. You may have to trim off just a little bit on the sides. So I'm measuring it here at the bottom to make sure that I cut it at the 5 7/8 along the bottom edge. And I am off camera. I'm marking that with a pencil. And I'm just going to take my scissors and just cut off a little bit there to square it up so that it fits on the pop-up element. So that's how you make images fit your pop-ups. You have to look at them, measure them, and make sure that they're going to fit and pop down inside within the page rather than sticking out where they don't belong. So now I'm ready to take this image and glue it to some black cardstock. So I'm looking for a scrap that's tall enough. I keep my scraps to the side of me on a shelf, so I'm found this piece that will work. So I'm just going to glue this down onto the black, and then yes, you do have to fussy cut it out again. So I'm going to be speeding that up, and then also you're going to want to glue pattern paper to the back side of the black cardstock. On mine, after I got done matting my Santa on the black cardstock, I noticed that some of the black of the rectangle piece showed, so I decided I want to cover that with some pattern paper also. So I picked out another strip of scrap about 3/8 inches wide, cut it to about 5 7/8 inches long, and glued that to the front narrow side of the little rectangle, so it would the black will not show. So I just think it look a little bit better. So it just depends. Yours may cover the whole thing up. It may not. If not, then add a little bit of pattern paper to cover the areas that you don't want showing black. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going to glue that down. And then the next step that I'm going to do, I decided I did not want the back of my Santa to be black, so I glued it again onto some pattern paper and fussy cut it out one more time before attaching it to the pop-up element. Once you've fussy cut out your decorative piece again, the Santa on the chimney, add a line of glue along the bottom edge on the back side, and then glue it down to the patterned narrow side of your rectangle mechanism. And then let that dry, burnish it really well. And now you're ready to glue this into the page section 1. into the flap area where we've patterned it. So you want to make sure that it fits. And you're going to put glue on the bottom edge on the black unpatterned edge. Just add a good amount of glue. This art glitter glue dries really, really well. If you haven't tried this glue, I highly suggest that you order some and give it a try. You can order it from countrycraftcreations.com. And when you order from them, you also get the little metal tip that comes with it that helps control the amount of glue that comes out of your bottle. So press this down flat and let the glue grab. Burnish it the best you can because there's a lot of thickness there. So just want to give it a chance to catch and dry really well, because this element's going to be coming up and down. And so then I close my book and burnish more with my hands to make sure that it's going to lay down flat. So I have attached it to the inside of the top flap of the page. So this is the front. The flap opens up and there's the pop-up element there. So now we're ready to decorate. I'm going to go ahead and end video 2 here. We'll start up with the tutorial video number 3. We'll finish decorating page section 1 by adding our rest of our pattern paper and our pocket on the back. And I'm picking out the papers right now that I want to use on the back. I like this green here, so that's what's going to go there. And so we'll work on that in the next tutorial video. I decided, since I had a little extra time, to go ahead and ink this piece of paper for the back side. Just make sure that you're putting it on, if it's directional, that you're paying attention to the direction that it's attaching. So you don't want it upside down. And so go ahead and use your glue. I'm just checking here to make sure which direction my page is. So I'm checking for the front. So this is the front. There's my pop-up on the inside. So I'll turn this to the left. So this is the correct direction. So I'm just going to add pattern paper to the back side. And then we'll start by patterning the inside in video 3 and decorating the rest of the page set 1. All right, see you later. Bye-bye.